You might feel like in withdrawal that no one understands what you're going through and like you cannot find the connection or support that you need. And that is because this is such a hard process and a lot of people actually don't understand it. So what I want to talk about today is how to talk with people about your withdrawal and how to talk about it in ways that are both protective to them and you, so that you can come through this in a healthy way and still have connections afterwards. And so some of the things I want to touch on is just like talking to family, talking to other social groups, and other friends, maybe even work, but just what does it look like to, and I'm just going to touch on these. This isn't going to be comprehensive, but just to touch on what does it look like to explain this to other people, especially when you're in a really vulnerable place. So also, if you want to be talking with someone for support, just go ahead and look at my description below and you'll see my website is there and you can sign up to be on my email list to learn more about that. So some of what happens in withdrawal is that you're suffering a lot, you're in a lot of pain, and you feel very in need of validation. So part of what you need to understand is that you're not going to get a lot of validation from a lot of your typical sources of support in your life. So for instance, you might have a really great group of friends or coworkers or whatever, and normally you can talk about things that are going on in your life and understand each other and encourage each other. But this might be a little bit out of their wheelhouse of knowing how to recognize or encourage you. And so it might make you feel more isolated that you're going through this. And so what I found is I would often go to people for validation or for them to understand, and then I might feel worse because they might say something that really hurt without meaning to, or they might just not understand at all, and then that can have an isolating kind of effect. So some of the things I learned was to just accept that not everybody's going to understand this, and it doesn't mean they don't love you or care about you or you don't still have a good relationship with them. It just means this might not be the area or the time in your life that you get to connect on this. And so allowing it, being okay with if some of your relationships aren't going to really understand what you're going through. And then leaning on the unique support that you can find, because we all need like encouragement and support and hope through the withdrawal process. And so your social life might look really different if you're in the midst of an acute withdrawal. And so you might need the support of the online groups, of a coach or online coaching group, withdrawal buddies, or maybe it's someone from your past that they've also been through this and now you're able to connect on that. Or it might be, a friend of yours who you haven't talked to in a long time, but they had a sibling go through this and they're able to connect with you. So there might be a unique opportunities of connection. And so just be open to the forms of support and encouragement that come into your life and seek those out. And I did feel like God really brought unique forms of support and encouragement into my life. And so I hope and pray that for every one of you, that you get the support you need to come through this stronger. One of the things I found is when I tried to explain withdrawal itself, a lot of people didn't understand it or didn't validate it as real, or it was just so outside of their normal, they didn't really know how to respond. And so if I were asked to like volunteer for something or go to some meetings that typically I would have been happy to do, or go to even social events, I felt really strange. Like, how are people, I can't just tell them, well, because I'm in withdrawal, I can't go, even though that's literally what was happening. either because they didn't understand withdrawal or they didn't know what it was, or if they did know what it was, it wouldn't make sense to them why you then couldn't come to a barbecue, or why would it last 9 months to a year? Like that didn't make sense to people, you know. And so what I started saying was that I had one of the ways I felt like I could explain it to people in a way that they could have a concept for it was I started calling it a chronic illness, but that I was recovering from. And I explained that I was dealing with a lot of fatigue. So I realized people had a category for chronic illness and they had a category for fatigue. A lot of the other symptoms in withdrawal and the actual specifics of psychiatric drug withdrawal were like outside of people's concept. And so if I explain myself with that, a lot of times I felt more misunderstood, or like maybe there's stigma. And so I started using that with my most outer circle. So that would be like people I'm not like super close to, but that I like they're in community, or in, you know, somehow connected to my life. So I just started explaining, hey, I'm dealing with a chronic illness right now, but I am healing and I'm on like a healing path and I'm getting a lot better. But right now I'm just really limited in what I can do. And I deal with a lot of fatigue. And so I actually won't be able to come and I'm so sorry. So like that kind of became my go-to response for a lot of social obligations or things. So that way I wasn't burning bridges by just like not showing up or shrugging things off, or not responding or ghosting or whatever. But I also wasn't like over telling my story in such a way that got stigma or got a really bad response that hurt me more. And so that's how I started handling a lot of those like outer circle, sort of like life things and obligations or opportunities that came up. And then once I was feeling better enough, I could start showing up to things and people would be like, hey, we're really glad you're here. I'm really glad this worked out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing better. And I didn't have to tell them all the details of like all the gory details of what exactly I was surviving. So that became one of my methods of dealing with my social life during withdrawal. And then for work-related stuff, for me, the time I was able to tell my former boss, I had an internship that I had wrapped up, and I was considering going back to work with her again, but I was dealing with all of these symptoms. So in that case, I was able to be open about what I was going through, especially because she came from a mental health background, and so had some familiarity with what withdrawal could be. So in that situation, it's like some things you just have to feel out. Like, would this person actually be able to understand and not stigmatize what it is I'm experiencing? So in that situation, I was able to connect with my intern boss and share honestly, and keep the rapport, even though I wasn't healthy enough to quite go back to work with her at that time. So some of it just takes careful, I guess, like carefully assessing, like if the person can actually understand and be supportive and not stigmatize you. If she hadn't been like in mental health and like familiar, I probably would have gone with a more simplistic explanation, of like, hey, I'd love to be working with you, but I'm dealing with some pretty terrible chronic illnesses that have flared up and I'm on recovery. Can I be in touch with working with you more when I'm better? So something to that effect. But I'm sure it can get really complicated if you're like already full-time in a job, or winding something up, or there's so many different factors with our lives, and how we navigate our work life and career in the midst of such severe suffering. So for me, I was able to put things on pause, which wasn't the easiest financially, but it did provide a time of just being able to heal. So that was like a real, you know, I guess like a gift for that time, even though it has felt frustrating. You know, it really is a gift if you're able to take some time to pause and heal. And just I wanted to also say, you can give yourself permission to live differently right now. And if you do burn some bridges or some relationships just fall apart in the midst of this, like just know that can happen, because this is just a hard thing to survive, and that all kinds of repair can be done in the future, and there can be new opportunities and new bridges built. A lot of people do lose connections in withdrawal, and I know some of my relationships suffered or just became more minimal or more distant, or I wore out some friends. So just do your best to, all we can do is our best to communicate where we're at and to lean on those who are willing and able to be helpful, and then just to deal with the cleanup as we're getting healthier. But yeah, just give yourself that permission that your social life might look really different, your work life might have to look really different, and that is okay, and that's part of healing, that's part of taking care of yourself, and that's part of being on a healing trajectory. And that means that you're handling your withdrawal with wisdom and with care, because you're valuable and you're important, and your healing journey is really, really important. And so take your time, and don't criticize yourself for how long it takes, because that part of it really isn't up to you. And just know that it is going to get better, and you're going to be able to connect with people more deeply and come on the other side of this and feel better about yourself and have joy, and this will even bring benefit to you in the future, as you grow in your perseverance and in all of these skills that you're going to need as you go through this. So just wanted to share those thoughts with you all, and yeah, like and subscribe, and you can follow me, and I'm just thankful I get to walk this journey of healing with you.